On this spiritual journey, the goal isn't to be perfect. We might as well get over that right away. It's not going to happen. We're human. But we can do the best we can do. That's maybe a worthy goal. And the best we can do at any particular time is a function of what we've learned up to that point. So if we look back, say 10 or 20 years ago, depending on our age, we can say, well, I did something back then that, from my vantage point now looks embarrassing, or I didn't handle that well, or, I really messed up there. Well, of course, but at that time, we were doing the best we could with the tools that we had available to us at that time. So that's just how life goes. And in fact, if we're not making our fair share of mistakes, I'd suggest maybe we're not trying hard enough, because that's how we learn. We go out, we try something, we realize that, okay, we're honest enough with ourselves to say, well, okay, that didn't feel quite right. I noticed that there was a reaction in my friend when I said this, and so I realized that, that may not have been the most skillful behavior. I like the term skillful versus unskillful behavior much better than good and bad behavior, because it's not good and bad, right or wrong. It's when we recognize that each of us, with what we know at the time, is doing the best we can. This isn't to whitewash our behavior, but it's to recognize that it's okay to be compassionate towards ourselves in recognition of what we knew at any particular point. So to go back and judge ourselves for what we did 10, 20 years ago isn't right. It's also not helpful, because it tends to lock in that judgment, locks in that sense of guilt or shame or whatever the emotion is, hatred maybe, anger, because something happened where, with the skills that we had available to us at that point, it didn't turn out so well. So to judge that 10 or 20 years later, 30, 40 years later, is just not a useful thing to do. We can have compassion towards ourselves for what happened, how we behaved, and not even forgive ourselves, because forgiveness, in my view, is judgment and then an overlay of, well, I'll forgive myself. But there's an underlying sense of judgment there. It's really the deep understanding that, yes, at that point, I did the best I could, didn't turn out that well, I didn't act in a skillful way. Now, hopefully, I know a little better. I heard a great phrase, I actually forget who I heard it from, but it was, if I hadn't done so many stupid things, I'd still be stupid today. And that's how it is. That's how we learn. And so by being out in the world, taking chances, being willing to be embarrassed, being willing to be hurt, being willing to be wrong, being willing to be judged by others, is part of it. It's our willingness to be exposed. It's a consequence of being open-hearted, out in the world, acting, and it's our chance to learn. If we hide away and try to pretend that we're something that we're not taking chances, playing it safe, we're not going to have that full exposure to life that's really needed to uncover all of our tendencies that we picked up early in life, and that we have a chance of smoothing over as time goes on. Not that we'll ever get it perfect, but it just sort of greases the wheels of being in the world to work through some of those things. We get an opportunity to learn about ourselves if we're willing to be out in the world, if we're willing to make mistakes. So this spiritual journey isn't about getting to some place of perfection. If we believe that, then the tendency is to hide things that we're not really comfortable about, hide things that where we know we still have some shadow work to do. It's better just to be out there, not to act out every negative tendency that we have, but to see it, to really see it, allow it to arise, at least within ourselves. Say, yeah, I can see that, and allow it to be without judgment, but also choose not to act on it. And this is just a maturity that can happen over time if we allow ourselves to live life wholeheartedly, live life courageously, you could say. Live life to try to achieve the fullest understanding that we can have within this very short lifetime. So I would encourage that. I would encourage you to live wholeheartedly, stub your toe every now and again, despite doing the best that we can at every moment, and being willing to go on and not be intimidated by life, but to live it fully, and give yourself the opportunity to learn the lessons that life gives you. In that sense, trust life. Trust life to give you the lessons, the experiences that are needed for your own personal journey, for your own personal growth, for your own understanding.